Never Knew I Wanted to Be a Breast Cancer Survivor by Rebecca J. Hogue. Over the last 2 or 3 days, my short-term memory sucks. I cannot seem to hold a thought for very long. I very often walk into a room having completely forgotten why I was there. Worse is that I sit in front of the computer with the intent on doing something, then I have no clue what it was. It feels like I'm easily drawn in so many different directions. Today, we met with the surgeon and the oncologist at the local clinic. There isn't a plan for treatment yet, just some general recommendations based upon the known pathology. There's a key test result we're waiting for. The preliminary HER2 test was inconclusive, so they send samples to a different lab for further testing. To simplify the discussion with the oncologist, we only go over options that make sense for HER2 negative, which is 80% likely. I have 2 separate cancers, one in each breast. The surgeon's recommendation is a double mastectomy. I had come to the same conclusion when the biopsy results for the right breast came back positive. What is interesting here is that prior to having cancer, I always thought that if it happened to me, I'd want it out immediately. Now that I have cancer, I'm not as certain. Yes, I want it out, but the decision over chemo or surgery first has me thinking about delaying surgery. I will not do reconstruction, which makes the surgery much simpler. The mastectomy involves removing all breast tissue, including the nipples. Reconstruction brings a lot of risk, and frankly, I'd be happy to never need to wear a bra again. I've never really liked the way my nipples looked. I've not had kids, so I don't have that connection to them either. With reconstruction, I'd likely lose all or most feeling. So if they're not a source of sexual pleasure, then there isn't a lot of point in keeping them, especially when nipple-sparing surgery is both more complex and can potentially increase the chance of recurrence. Choosing to not do the nipple-sparing surgery for those reasons is logical. I like logical. It is a relief to make this big decision that will change my body forever. Both cancers, the left and the right, have the same characteristics. They're both estrogen positive and progesterone positive. Given the growth rate of the left, chemotherapy is recommended. The chemo would be the ACT type, assuming HER2 negative. Don't know too much about the chemo yet, since we just learned about the recommendation today. The chemo could happen before or after surgery, so this is the next big question. Now, if I'm HER2 positive, that means the chemo will happen first, since there's some chemotherapies that can block the HER2 protein that can only be given before surgery. There are complexities with HER2, including an increased mortality rate. I've learned that statistics only mean something before you get a diagnosis. They provide hope. For example, 80% of breast cancers are HER2 negative. But they mean nothing once you receive a diagnosis. It's no longer relevant what the statistics are, like 1 in 8 women will get breast cancer in their lifetime, or that a certain percentage of breast cancers are hormone positive. Both of my cancers are hormone positive. Statistics only matter for the unknown future, not the known present. Having 2 cancers is not so common, but it certainly makes the double mastectomy question easier. If I only had 1 cancer, keeping the second breast would have been expected, unless I have one of the breast cancer genes, such as BRCA. Breast cancer doesn't travel between breasts. My BRCA test results won't be available for a couple weeks. We're hoping for negative there too. If I only had breast cancer in my left breast, I'd always be wondering if I should be keeping my right breast. Would that mean an increased risk of recurrence? And would it mean mammograms every 6 months on the right breast and constant worry? Plus, it would have been harder to figure out clothing and those complexities. Yes, women do it, but I would have found it difficult, a constant reminder. The double mastectomy is one of the easier decisions. Tomorrow, we go for a second opinion at Stanford. It is also a chance to see Stanford and decide if it's a better treatment option. The folks at the local clinic saw no reason I would get any different treatment at Stanford, given what we know now. The only thing that might matter is if there's a clinical trial that I qualify for at Stanford that isn't available at the local clinic. The local clinic oncologist didn't know of any. Stanford, in some ways, has a coolness and prestige factor. I could say I went there, and I could wear the sweatshirt with pride. But it's also at least another 20-minute drive further away, and parking costs $12. Parking is free at the local clinic, and most of the locations are within 5 to 15-minute drive from my husband's office and 20-minute drive from home. This all adds up. So far, the care at the local clinic has been superb. Although I might have been leaning towards Stanford late last week, I'm now leaning the other direction. But tomorrow will tell. I may get to Stanford and feel that's the right decision for me. I'm happy to know that I have choices. Choice means that I have some sense of control, and I'm a control freak. With most of this, I don't have any control. I'll take what I can get. At the time, I'd thought I'd made the decision about reconstruction. In reality, I just put the decision off until after chemo. When I wrote this, and over the months of chemotherapy, I was trying really hard to convince myself that I'd be okay without reconstruction. More on that later. Chemotherapy regimes have changed a lot over the last 10 years. What was standard of care back then is not necessarily standard of care now. This is something that I would not realize until after I'd made my treatment decisions. It's something to be cautious about when talking to others who have gone through treatment before you, as technology and protocols are always changing. The increased mortality rate that I mentioned with HER2 was based upon older data. That's another one of those challenges with things like mortality. It can take up to 20 years for the data to be validated before it gets published, so by then the treatment options have changed. The targeted therapies for HER2 have made it significantly less deadly. It's July 11th, 2023. I'm scared. I've gone through many scares over the last 8.5 years. That's how long it's been since the last known cancer was removed from my body. That's how long I've been in remission. I have a mantra for when I'm scared. In the absence of a diagnosis, I am healthy. Except this scare is different. This scare involves suspicious lymph nodes and an ultrasound-guided biopsy. Now the waiting begins. It can take up to 2 weeks to get results. The radiologist doing the biopsy said she would push the lab to try to get the results sooner. This has me even more worried. The Canadian healthcare system generally doesn't move that fast, except when it needs to. The speed is in part what is making me suspicious that this is something rather than nothing. My family doctor promised that he would phone me immediately when he got the results. I thanked him for that. It's good that he understands that not knowing is worse than knowing. The in-between state is hard. My mind runs through the alternatives. It could be a regional recurrence, only in the lymph nodes. It could be a totally different cancer, a lymphoma. But the location, my right underarm, is more suspicious of breast cancer. It could mean stage 4, terminal breast cancer. Then my mind starts into planning mode. I'm a planner. I like certainty, or at least to be prepared for the most likely outcomes. I remind myself that the first time around, I didn't react the way I thought I would. I really have no idea how I will react to the news. The first time, I always thought I'd say, "Get it out of me," and yet that was not how I reacted. Planning is a waste of energy. Instead, I make myself busy. I try to exhaust myself so that I don't spend time worrying. I repeat my mantra. In the absence of a diagnosis, I am healthy. If you're enjoying this podcast, please subscribe.